Good evening and welcome to the Township of Woolwich Council meeting on Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. We are now live on YouTube and welcome all those attending in person. We have a number of presenters and delegators this evening, and so it's good to see you with us. I'll start with a roll call of council. I, Mayor Shantz, am present and chairing this meeting. Councillor Bryant.
Present.
Councillor Cadeau.
Present.
Councillor Grant.
Present.
Councillor Schwint.
Present.
And Councillor Burgess sends his regrets. Can I have a motion to reconvene in open? Moved by Councillor Grant, second by Councillor Bryant. All those in favor? That's carried. I acknowledge the land on which we live has been here from time immemorial, and the Indigenous people have lived here from time immemorial. I thank the Chinatan, also called the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee people who have lived here and cared for this land and who continue to share and steward this land with us. May we together learn to care for each other, our flora and fauna, and the land that sustains us. Summer is coming to a close, and so we want to remind everyone that students are returning to school next week, and please be mindful, pay attention to those around school buses and crosswalks, and ensure that the children have a safe start to their year. Let's start with a moment of silence. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary interest. Councillor Schwint has submitted a declaration for items 16.2 and 16.3. The fees and charges amendment related to a site alteration. Oh, that's a question. Yep, we're good. Okay. Thank you. Items to come forward from closed session. We have a motion that the Council of the Township of Woolwich, considering report C20-2024 respecting downtown Elmira Business Improvement Area Board appointment, appoints Tamara Yates to the board until the expiration of the term of council that appointed them, or until successors are appointed, as long as they continue to be a qualified member of the board. Moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have minutes from Special Council July 2nd, Special Council July 16th, Special Council August 9th, and Committee of the Whole August 13th. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bryant and Councillor Schwint. All those in favor? That's carried. We have no public meetings and no presentations, but we do have several delegations. And so I have a little blurb I have to read here for you. The guidelines for participating. On this section of the agenda, delegates have 7 minutes unless council or the clerk has set a different amount of time. After you speak, please wait for questions from council. Once there are no further questions, you may return to your seat. You can leave anytime you wish, or you are more than welcome to stay for the whole evening. And we are going to start with H.O.P.E Multicultural Festival. And I'll call on Abby Cooper from Hearts Open for Everyone to talk to us about the Multicultural Festival. Abby, the floor is yours. Yes.
Sorry, our timer isn't working tonight, so I'll just give everyone hand signals 1 minute, and then your time is up.
Okay, thank you. Oh. Did everyone hear that?
Sorry,
Yes.
I'll say that again. I'll give you a 1 minute signal, and then when your time is up.
Good. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Shantz, council members and staff. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today. I'm Abby Cooper, the founder of H.O.P.E, Hearts Open for Everyone, and I'm also the event organizer of the Multicultural Festival, also known as MFE. I'm excited to share the vision behind the festival and its positive impact on our community. Our goal is to broaden awareness of the diverse cultures in our region, welcome newcomers, and foster a sense of belonging. By celebrating various cultures, we highlight the importance of diversity and inclusion while raising awareness about our EDI-related workshops, services, and vendors. Our goal is to broaden awareness of, did I already say that? Yes, I did. Last year's inaugural festival had a significant impact by opening volunteering opportunities and exposing the Woolwich community to diverse cultures, food, and educational experiences. According to our surveys, 80% of attendees learned something new about our different culture, with most coming from Elmira and Kitchener. This shows strong regional interest. More importantly, the festival also fostered a sense of belonging. We couldn't have succeeded without the support of our community and organizational partners. The United Way and the Township of Woolwich funded essential aspects like sound, staging, and building Bridges of Peace art project led by Waterloo Region artist Roshan James. We also received significant support from our sponsors, including McDonald's Elmira, Elmira Pet Products, Hartman Jewelers, Wallenstein Feed, and others. Our partnerships with the Township, Woolwich Community Services, the Waterloo Region Library, and local businesses were crucial for reaching a wider audience, organizing the Cultures United event, and securing donations for our social media giveaways. The festival featured various vibrant and meaningful performances, some of which included an Indigenous smudging and opening by Crowshield Lodge, a Bharatanatyam dance by Sri Abhirami Dance Academy, and a lion dance by students of the Waterloo Kung Fu Academy. The Building Bridges of Peace community art project was well received, and activities like face painting, the magic show, and the scavenger hunt were also popular among attendees. 94% of participants rated their experience positively, and vendors shared their eagerness to return. So I just wanted to play this recap video created by our planning committee member, Jasmine Through, which captures the festival's energy and community excitement. There we go. How do we go about playing that?
May this acknowledgement serve as a step toward reconciliation, understanding, and a commitment to a more inclusive and equitable future for all of us as we celebrate the diverse blend of cultures uniting in harmony. And that's what's happening today with our very first Multicultural Festival.
We celebrate our differences, but we celebrate who we are together as well.
Okay. Just gonna go to the next slide here. So the festival's success was largely attributed to the dedication of our volunteers, whose warmth and helpfulness were praised by attendees. Their efforts ensured a smooth event, which has been reflected in the positive feedback we received. Another thing to note is that 54% of attendees expressed interest in joining future HOPE workshops and programs, which highlights the community's desire for continued engagement. This year, we're expanding with more diverse performances representing Colombian, Caribbean, North Indian, Mennonite, Indigenous, and Chinese cultures. We're partnering with the Region of Waterloo Library again to offer the Cultures United event, providing a multi-sensory experience of 10 different cultures. Our annual community art project will feature a 6x6 mural led by Waterloo Region artist Alana Decker, which will be displayed at the Woolwich Memorial Center. To create a welcoming, family-friendly atmosphere, we're adding children's performances, Indigenous drumming and beading workshops, and inclusive options like chair yoga offered by Bethany Lee Yoga Studio, e-bike rides offered by Elmira District Community Living, and a calm corner to offer a space for those who want to recharge from the excitement. We're also expanding our food vendors to include flavors from El Salvador, India, China, Mexico, Portugal, and more. We're deeply grateful for the township's financial support. Your contribution didn't just help us organize an event, it helped bring our community together to celebrate Woolwich Township's rich diversity. We're committed to making the MFE an annual tradition, one that everyone can look forward to and take pride in. So we're excited about our upcoming festival on Saturday, September the 21st from 12 to 5 at Gibson Park in Elmira. For more details, you can visit our website, heartsopenforeveryone.ca/Multicultural Festival of Elmira, or you can follow us on social media at Hearts Open for Everyone, either on Instagram or Facebook. And you can also contact our team at info@heartsopenforeveryone.ca for more information. So I just wanted to thank you for your attention. I'm happy to take any questions if you'd like.
Thank you, Abby, and thank you for your leadership on this. It's a great event, and I know it's just going to grow. Are there any questions or comments from council? No. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, arts and culture grants. I will call on Council and Committee Support Specialist Tanya Bettridge. Tanya?
Thank you, Mayor Shantz, and through you. Good evening, Council and community. We have quite the gallery here. Before you is a report regarding 2 grant requests from the Three Sisters Cultural Center, asking to support both the Kissing Bridge Art Tour, as well as a new initiative, the Spirit, Humanity, Earth, Exploring Healing Through Art program. As a bit of a background, Council supported the Kissing Bridge Art Tour in 2023 with funding from the municipal accommodation tax, and staff are recommending that the request be granted using that same funding model for the 2024 event, and that's to reflect the relationship with the hotels and the accommodation that that event attracts. The applicant supplied the report that they filed for their provincial funding, which speaks to the growth and the positive economic and tourism impact that the art tour brings to Woolwich. One of the key results of the township's community strategic plan is to really showcase the municipality's unique identity, and the Kissing Bridge Art Tour is a great vehicle to help us do that. Earlier this summer, the applicants reached out to staff to discuss their planned events and programs. In addition to a return of the Kissing Bridge Art Tour, the Three Sisters Cultural Center is planning a month-long exhibition focusing on Indigenous artists, Indigenous artwork, healing, and spirituality, and also includes interactive learning and exploring elements such as the intuitive energy art workshop. Staff felt that such a program aligns perfectly with the strategic plan's goal of creating a greater sense of belonging and social cohesion amongst the residents, and really showcase that unique identity that Woolwich has. Jax Rula is here from the center as a delegate and can speak to any details about the events or the cultural center. But if council has any questions regarding the report or process, I am happy to answer at this time.
Are there any, excuse me, are there any questions for Tanya before I call on Jax? No. Thanks. Jax, welcome.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, council, and staff for allowing me to speak during this council meeting. Abby, that was a great presentation, and now next year I'm going to have to come with a slideshow, right? That's awesome. I welcome this opportunity to ask for the township's support in our continuing efforts to provide opportunities for local artists to showcase and sell their work to residents, visitors in Woolwich. This year, we were able to again present the Kissing Bridge Art Tour in addition to a new multicultural exhibit, as you said, entitled Spirit, Humanity, and Earth. And I just am going to add a little bit to this. This is a handshaking exhibit, the Spirit, Humanity, Earth one. So it's created actually by people who have worked with Indigenous people. So it's a blended program. And most of our presenters are blended people, and it's a wonderful way to I don't know, spread that cultural handshake. Last year's efforts to revitalize the Kissing Bridge Art Tour were very successful and resulted in the artist collective happily handing the reins over to the three sisters to continue the work. So I don't know if you remember last year that ad hoc collective of artists came to us and asked us for help. And then they were just so impressed that they said, you do that. And they all ran back to their studios, to make art, which is what artists want to do, which is a great thing. So now that they are in their studios making art, we can do the job of providing a much needed venue and opportunity for them to engage with the public. We learned something last year. Last year, we hosted the event in 10 different locations. That the most success was found in the conglomerate settings, as opposed to individual studios. Places where a lot of artists could be seen and was easily accessible. So for this year's event, which has 23 artists participating from all over the region, we chose the Waterloo Rod and Gun Club on Bodie Lane as the single venue for this year's show. All the artists will be in one setting, which is fully accessible, has plenty of parking, and still has the rural charm that this area is known for. With your support, last year's Kissing Bridge Art Tour saw 3,000 people over 2 days, over a quarter of which were tourists. Yay. Maintaining our partnership with the local hotels this year will allow us to market our art show as an essential part of a visitor's weekend stay in the area, as they also can experience the several other art tours that are happening the same time in Guelph and in Kitchener. We anticipate at least the same number of visitors this year. This season, we are also excited to host this new multicultural exhibit during the month of September. We will be welcoming artists from diverse cultures who have collaborated to produce unique art projects. The overarching theme is to look at how art can facilitate healing of our spirit, our humanity, and the earth. In addition to showcasing 2 art exhibits of portraits and steel sculptures, we are also offering workshops, a cooking demonstration, and a drum circle during the month of Truth and Reconciliation. In both these art shows, the township will be supporting community artists in their efforts to showcase and sell their art to a growing tourist audience who will be able to enjoy all the cultural activities that our township has to offer. This will build further interest to explore and consider this place when making decisions on where to live and work. And again, the caliber of art represented in these shows rivals any you will find in places like Toronto and Montreal, showcasing the breadth of art and culture our local artists have to offer. The funding we are requesting will support both these events and will go towards paying for the marketing efforts required to make them successful in terms of attendance and the resulting economic impact an increase in visitors will have on our community. Support from the township will extend the funding we have also received from FedDev Ontario, which is supporting our efforts over the next 2 years. Both of these shows support not only the artists in our community and the local retail and restaurants that will benefit from the people who visit, but also the local businesses that are constantly looking for ways to make this community attractive to entice excellent and talented employees. Beyond anything else, I would like to thank you so much for your time and consideration for our projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Okay, thank you. And thank you for the interest in the arts and the leadership you've taken in the arts.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
There is a recommendation. Would someone like to move it? Councillor Grant, Councillor Cadeau, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Annual grants program is the next report, and Tanya, you're up again.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to council. I promise this is the last item for me tonight. You're probably sick of seeing my face. The annual grants program is extremely popular, and the intake applications for 2025 is no exception. The report and topic of discussion before council tonight is not really about the financial numbers. That's not the focus for tonight. The focus is you'll have lots of time during the budget process to wrangle all those numbers, but really your consideration as to which of the four applicant organizations council wishes to support and therefore direct staff to include in the creation of the draft budget. So our first applicant is Shelter Movers, Southwestern Ontario, who council supported for a 2024 annual grant of $3,150 to help them provide moving and storage services to victims of abuse and their families. Shelter Movers is the only organization of its kind in the country, and unfortunately, the reality of domestic violence is, as this council declared almost a year ago now, an epidemic. And the demand for Shelter Movers services has unfortunately increased. In response to that increased demand, they have asked for $5,000 annually for the term of council. We heard from this next applicant earlier about the multicultural event. And when we talk about one of the strategic plan's key results to create a greater sense of belonging and social cohesion among residents, the work of H.O.P.E immediately comes to mind. We have connected with Ms. Cooper on multiple occasions, and it was quickly apparent that H.O.P.E and the work it does would benefit from a more proactive annual grant resource rather than the multiple one-off grant requests that H.O.P.E has been doing the past couple of years. So H.O.P.E's intent is to expand the programming and it would also be supported by an annual grant revenue. So they have requested $15,000 annually for the term of council. You can see all the details in their application and in the report as to what that expansion looks like in terms of their programming. The third annual grant request is from Junior Achievement, Southwestern Ontario, which provides a program to students grades 4 through high school on the topics of financial health, work readiness, and entrepreneurship. Each program costs approximately $1,000 and can be facilitated by Junior Achievement volunteers or even teachers. The request for 2025 is to fund 5 programs in Woolwich for a total of $5,000. The final applicant is the St. Jacob's Home and School Association, which is looking to replace the school's playground, which was recently removed, leaving young students without a play structure in the yard. The association wants a new playground to create a safe and accessible, inclusive area to learn and play. The original request was a one-time annual capital grant of $100,000, but the group has indicated, and hopefully they can explain that decision during the delegation tonight, that the request is now $10,000. So we'll just move that decimal place over. With regard to Junior Achievement and the St. Jacob's School request, the township has traditionally considered schools, school infrastructure, and curriculum to be a provincial responsibility, and council's decisions in terms of declining previous grant requests have reflected that perspective. As staff, we do see that organizations like Junior Achievement and the school groups, they do need an outdoor place for their school. We would suggest that they maybe look into other funding avenues, such as a raffle or other type of lottery where people can support their cause with some disposable income and it's optional rather than by the tax levy for something that is a provincial responsibility. And we happen to be able to do lottery licenses here at Woolwich, so maybe that is the best way to serve these groups. We've also suggested other grant resources for them. So staff are recommending that Shelter Movers, Southwestern Ontario, and Hearts Open for Everyone annual grant requests be included in the draft 2025 budget. All 4 applicants are present tonight as delegates, ready to showcase their organization and what it hopes to accomplish with the grant that they have requested. And I'm sure they are eager to answer any questions you have about their organization or the proposed use of funds. But if council does have questions about the process or any items from the report, I am happy to address those.
Are there any questions for staff? No. I'm not seeing any. Our clerk tells me that the timer is now working, so you can see that on this screen where it says blue sky timer, and there'll be a ding when there's 1 minute left and then another ding when so don't be surprised when you hear the ding. Our first delegate is Courtney Waterfall of Shelter Movers Southwestern Ontario. Welcome, Courtney.
Thanks for having me. Presentation I'll do. Thank you, Mayor Shantz and Council for inviting us all to come in and speak tonight. It's always great when we can, first of all, thank you for your support for this year, but also give you an update about the work that we've been doing at Shelter Movers. So our mission, again, we are a national volunteer powered charity that provides free moving and storage services to individuals and families fleeing abuse. We work with local businesses and community agencies to support families as they're transitioning to a life free from violence. This is just a quick recap of the growth that we've had in our chapter since our establishment in June of 2020, when we were initially, the work was being done for us to be created. Our first move was in December of 2020. And we are soon to be completing our 600th move. So we've had a lot of growth. And just a little bit about these three wonderful people in the picture here. These are three of our amazing volunteers, Isabel, Todd, and Scott. And between the three of them, they have completed over 370 moves. So we all know that gender-based violence is an epidemic. From January 1st to July 31st of this year, 111 women and girls were murdered in Canada. So that's one every 1.9 days. In Waterloo region, in 2023, there were over 6,200 occurrences of intimate partner violence. And so far in Q1 of 2024, almost 1,600 occurrences. Our impact to date nationally, we're doing about 145 moves per month. That's across 9 chapters. We will soon have 10 with a chapter opening in Winnipeg later this year. Our chapter is doing about 20 moves per month. So that's about 14% of our national average. We are the second biggest chapter, only next to our Greater Toronto chapter, which when you consider our chapters in Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, it's pretty significant that we're doing as many moves here as we are. We have done 589 moves to date. And when I was here last time in December, we had done about 425. We are on track to complete over 250 moves this year alone. Another thing I want to point out is the level of medium and high risk moves that we have here is significantly higher than the rest of the country. So this year so far, 42% of our moves are medium or high risk. That means they require police or security escort, where only 25% of the rest of the country's moves are medium and high risk. In Q1 of this year, we did 64 moves, Q1 of our fiscal year, 64 moves that included 91 children and 28 pets. So our goal is to remove barriers to new beginnings. I'm not going to go over this. We remove emotional, financial security and other barriers. And we know that the most dangerous place for women and girls in Canada is in their home. We provide 3 main types of moves. Our resettlement moves are generally our lowest risk. That is when the client, their belongings are already out of the abusive home and we're helping them move to their new safe place. Our escorted moves are when the client's already out of the abusive home, but we're returning with them and police or security to get their belongings out. And our urgent exit moves are when the client is still living in the abusive home. So we're going in with police or security to get them and their belongings out. Our volunteers. So just to talk specifically about Woolwich. So last year when I was here, we had 2 active volunteers in Woolwich. We now have 5. So that's a huge increase in volunteers for us in this area. And then I just want to share a couple stories from our volunteers. We have a volunteer that is a newcomer to Canada. He said he didn't feel like he fit in our community until he started volunteering with Shelter Movers. And now when he calls home, he feels proud of the work that he is doing with our organization. And he's proud to talk to his parents about the difference he's making in our community. We also have a volunteer that was majoring in science at the University of Waterloo. They have since changed their major to social work because of the impact they've seen on our community. We've also provided placements for over 35 students since 2022 in programs such as social work, social service work, sociology, pharmacology, marketing, and more. And here's a little bit about our clients. So in Woolwich last year, we moved at least 5 clients from the Woolwich area. This year, we're on track to move about 6. I say at least because if they have already moved to a shelter outside of Woolwich and aren't returning to their home for belongings, we don't necessarily know where they originated from. So we've done at least 5 moves last year, from Woolwich. And I just wanted to share a couple of stories from some of our clients in the last couple of months. I was out on a move a couple of months ago, and I had to call the client and let her know that we were on our way. She was difficult to understand over the phone. And when we got there, she apologized to me and said that she had vocal cord damage from being strangled. And she just said it so matter-of-factly. I held it together on the move, and then in the car ride on the way home, I was a mess. These are the people that we're serving every day. We also had a client that when we returned to the home to get her belongings, the thing she was most concerned about not being able to take with her was her son's ashes, who had passed away a couple of years before. We get to help clients start fresh without having to start over every single day. And we're able to do that with support from Woolwich and from other partners that we have in the community. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and intimate partner violence and family violence is definitely growing. We see it in many places, and it's reported quite a bit. I think I felt that COVID was going to exacerbate that, and I think it truly has. Are there any questions or comments? No. Okay, thank you very much for the work you do and for the support you give to people who really need it.
Thank you.
So I have Abby Cooper as my next delegate. Do you have another presentation, Abby, or? Okay. Then welcome back.
Hello again, council members. Today I'm here to discuss how your support can help us empower our community through inclusivity. We are requesting your consideration for the Township of Woolwich operating grant to continue and expand the vital work we're doing in our community. At H.O.P.E, our vision is to foster a multicultural rural community where everyone feels truly authentic and welcome. Our mission is to create shared experiences that promote compassion, togetherness, and a deep sense of belonging. We believe that by bringing people together, we can create a stronger, more cohesive community. Our values guide everything we do at H.O.P.E. We're committed to respecting identities by strengthening voices as we gain knowledge and seek understanding while weaving relationships and building trust. These principles are not just words to us, they are at the core of our work and the key to creating the meaningful connections within our community. My journey to founding H.O.P.E comes from my own search for community and belonging. Having experienced racism and discrimination and microaggressions, I understand the challenges of fitting in and the pressure to assimilate. As an immigrant, I also recognize the struggles newcomers face when adapting to a new place. These experiences have shaped our mission at H.O.P.E, helping us to create programs that truly resonate within our communities, with our community's needs. The feedback we've received from our participants have been incredibly positive. For instance, one participant shared, "I feel extremely privileged to have access to these workshops." Another expressed, "It's so good to share different ideas and backgrounds. Please continue." Our workshops, such as the one with Kristen Dennis as our speaker, left a lasting impact, with participants reflecting on meaningful takeaways like, We wake up every morning and be happy that you are alive. At Crow Shield Lodge, the shuttle service we provided made a significant difference. A senior attendee mentioned that it allowed them to connect with others, which was a rare and valuable opportunity. Events like Global Flavors and the 2S LGBTQIA+ workshops have been crucial in promoting unity and acceptance within our diverse community. The positive feedback and increased community connections show the impact of our work, and we're proud to be part of this transformation. Ensuring that our programs are accessible and inclusive is a top priority for H.O.P.E. We hold our events in fully accessible locations and actively address barriers such as transportation and language. By partnering with local organizations, we ensure that our programming reflects the diverse needs of our growing community. Our goal is to build an inclusive community where no one is left behind. Public funds are absolutely vital for sustaining and expanding the impact of H.O.P.E. They enable us to continue addressing deep-rooted feelings of isolation and to promote inclusivity as our diverse township evolves. By investing in H.O.P.E, you're not just supporting an organization, you're fostering a community where every individual feels valued and connected. Your support ensures that we can maintain and enhance the strong sense of belonging that makes Woolwich unique and special. With these funds, we can keep creating opportunities for all residents to come together, celebrate their differences, and build lasting relationships. In essence, your support helps us make Woolwich a place where everyone truly feels at home. Oh, I must have missed some of my notes. So I'll just go through these. So for sustainability and long-term vision, we look to sustainable growth and building for the future. For sustainable growth, we're looking at ongoing efforts to secure additional grants and explore new revenue streams. And for building for the future, we're looking at long-term commitment to serving Woolwich Township and continuously evolving to meet community needs. For volunteer engagement, we're very happy to share that over 40 volunteers, we've gained over 40 volunteers for MFE and 50 dedicated planning committee members. 250 plus volunteers hours have been contributed monthly. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I missed a sheet. And for the impact of volunteer support, it's been vital to the successful delivery of our programs and events, and it embodies the spirit of community and collaboration. And we really couldn't do it without our volunteers. And some of them are here today to support, and I'm really happy to have them by my side. For accessibility and inclusivity, this is mainly something that we really truly care about with all our programs, because we really care about making sure that everything is we're removing barriers and making sure that everyone can attend our workshops and programs. So our events are held in fully accessible locations. We address barriers such as transportation and language, so ensuring that our marketing is translated into multiple languages, and transportation is available for those who need special transportation to access our programs, and collaborative partnerships with local organizations. We've worked with many different organizations within the Woolwich Township, and we're really happy that we've gained these relationships in the process of building H.O.P.E. For inclusive community building, we're ensuring that no one is left behind. Our programs are designed to reflect the diverse needs of our growing community. I think I may have touched on that already. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time and consideration. and we're deeply committed to our community, and we look forward to continuing our work with your support. I'm happy to answer any of your questions at this time.
Thank you, Abby. Are there any questions? Councillor Grant.
Thank you. Through you to Abby. I'm just wondering, you mentioned looking at tailoring some of your programs to emerging needs. What are some of the emerging needs that you're starting to see already that we may need to address within the township?
Yeah, for sure. So what we're noticing is, I've been thankful to take some time actually working with Engage Rural and really spending time learning about what the needs are for the community and hearing kind of the issues and challenges that they're having. And some of the things that they've mentioned are like a lot of the things that mainly come to mind is just that sense of belonging and needing a safe space where they can go to and feel like they belong. So, and that's mainly what we're really trying to do with our programming is creating this safe space wherever that is, and ensuring that they have a place that they can go to and be their true selves, and not have to worry about how they're going to be judged or discriminated.
Anyone else? No. Thank you again, Abby, and thank you to all your volunteers. I think all the organizations and everyone we're hearing from today relies on volunteers, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Karen Gallant of Junior Achievement Southwestern, Ontario. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Madam Mayor, councillors, and staff. I appreciate the opportunity to join you tonight to provide further information about the funding application from Junior Achievement Southwestern Ontario. JA Southwestern Ontario is part of JA Worldwide, a global organization which operates in more than 120 countries around the world. JA Southwestern Ontario's territory spans from Windsor to Tobermory down to Fort Erie. JA's vision is a world in which young people have the skill set and mindset to build thriving economies. We equip youth with the skills, knowledge, and networks to dream big and pursue a meaningful and successful life, whatever that means for them. Our learning experiences focus on 3 pillars: financial health, work readiness, and entrepreneurship, helping youth to build a solid foundation for success. Last school year, we facilitated more than 30,000 learning experiences in partnership with 539 teachers and 601 volunteers. Here in Woolwich Township specifically, we facilitated 15 learning experiences reaching more than 375 students. JA programs are offered free of charge in schools to students from grades 4 to 12. Most programs are facilitated by trained volunteers who bring the learning to life. We also run an extracurricular high school program called Company Program, which anyone who knows JA, that's the program they typically think of. Each year, we promote our programs to all schools in the region, and teachers can register at any time. Because we offer programs in the classrooms, we reach diverse groups of students regardless of ability, demographic, social, or economic background. JA programs have been proven to transform a young person's life, helping them dream big about their future and giving them skills, knowledge, and the confidence to pursue their goals, regardless of what those goals may be. According to a Boston Consulting Group study, more than 80% of people who participate in JA cite JA as having a significant impact on the development of their leadership and problem-solving skills. They're 25% less likely to be unemployed. They're 3 times less likely to spend more than they earn, and they're 50% more likely to open their own business. By equipping young people with foundational knowledge in budgeting, investing, and business leadership, as well as helping them to understand what it takes to be successful in the workplace, JA is a proactive solution to many of the issues facing society today, including homelessness, poverty, food insecurity, and youth unemployment. When I talk to people about JA, I hear 2 common questions or comments. First, people say, I wish I had this when I was in school. Or they say, I wish this was in my kid's school. Second, they say, so you must be funded by the province or the Ministry of Education, right? We are not. Funding for education flows from the Ministry of Education to the local school boards. This funding covers a variety of items, including the staffing, learning resources, student mental health and learning supports, special education, facilities maintenance and operations, student transportation, and school board administration. Local school boards face increasing financial pressures, staffing shortages, general inflationary pressure, and increased student support needs. As a result, money available for in-class learning resources is scarce. We've all heard of teachers who buy classroom supplies out of their own pockets. JA's ability to provide our proven, effective programs at no cost to teachers is a welcome support and ensures many students can benefit. Our teachers vouch for the impact of JA in the classroom with comments like, these programs are vitally important for students at a young age to help them as they move into independence and adult responsibilities. They need to understand the connections between education, work, and finances. In order for us to offer our programs at no charge, we rely on a variety of sources of funding. We don't receive any consistent annual funding from any source. Each year, we must raise all the necessary funds through the support of corporations, individuals, foundations, local governments, and fundraising events. In my 6 years leading the local JA organization, we've never told a teacher we couldn't deliver a program because we didn't have funds to do so. However, demand for JA's programs is increasing faster than our financial capacity. And this coming school year, for the first time, we're going to have to cap our program registrations based on the funding available. It costs $1,000 to run one program, which includes all of the print and digital program materials, volunteer recruitment, screening and training, program coordination, and evaluation. At JA, we believe in the boundless potential of young people. Funding from Woolwich Township will support 5 learning experiences, 5 programs, so that local young people can achieve that potential. On behalf of those youth, thank you for considering our application.
Questions? I have a question. When I think about how long ago it was that my son was in JA, I feel like I should go home to bed. What do you provide here in Elmira? Because I think he went into Waterloo for it.
It depends on what program he would be interested in or a student is interested in. He may have participated in company program, which is that extracurricular high school program, and that we run in Waterloo, Kitchener, those kinds of places. Depends on if we have a facility to be able to run it in other locations and enough students along with volunteers. So we would certainly run one in Elmira if we had all of those things that came together. In class programs, we run right across the entire Waterloo region. And here in Woolwich last year, as I mentioned, we ran 15 programs across about 4 or 5 different schools.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to the delegate. Excuse me. Really appreciate what you do. Anytime somebody wants to teach our children about financial literacy, that's okay in my books. I think my question stems from the new curriculum that the provincial government announced. It's going to have a component of financial literacy. I'm just wondering, how your program is going to dovetail with the new provincial curriculum. Is it going to be redundant, or is there something special that your program will cover?
Through Madam Mayor. The new curriculum really focuses around high school. And so students, in order to graduate high school, will have to demonstrate financial literacy capacity through EQAO testing. There's a number of things that we do. First of all, we try to get students to understand financial literacy much earlier. So it will be earlier in the curriculum that it's introduced, typically grade 7 or 8. So it sets them up for success in that grade 9, 10 EQAO testing. We also know that teachers have to find their own resources. And therefore, if a teacher is not comfortable or confident in being able to teach financial literacy throughout their own experiences, being able to rely on JA and the volunteers that we put in the classroom becomes crucial to making sure that those classes actually have the skills, the knowledge, and the ability to be able to pass the EQA testing requirement.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And our final delegation is Steve Haase of the St. Jacobs Home and School. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council, staff, fellow delegates, and my kiddos watching back home. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. So I represent the St. Jacobs Public School Home and School Association, and we are looking to build a school playground. Simple enough. The problem is, there we go, the clicker. Hey, there we go. We got a couple in a row. It has been non-functional since 2019. We have basically a whole generation of playground age children who have been told, you cannot use this equipment. And then finally, in 2024, it was removed. It is gone. And so we as Home and School are in charge of raising funds. Tanya, thank you for your help with the process all along here. Mentioned that funding comes from the province. The school board only covers the surface. So we have the sand that you see there. And if when a new playground is put in place, they will cover the surface of whatever it is that we fund through the families of the school. So that's what we're looking to do. And the reason we're looking to do it is because children, all humans, thrive when we get outdoors, move our bodies, play, use our muscles, all those wonderful things. And the kids have a diminished experience of that right now. So while we were in process of raising the funds, $200,000 was our initial mark to have kind of carte blanche to make something amazing. That was why our initial request was $100,000. We got a message from one of the parents who also has a playground excavation company, and they said that this playground that you see here was being removed from a location in Guelph because they were building something bigger and snazzier there, and it still had lots of life in it, and was wondering if we wanted it at no charge. So, I mean, of course, there's not no charge. There would be moving it and installing it and certifying it. The main thing with having to remove the old one was no one was willing to certify it. It was like, I don't know, it's a little sketchy. So they're willing to do all the work to get this new equipment to us within this generation of playground age children. So we are changing our goals. Instead of having to raise $200,000, it's looking more like $30,000. As we embarked on this process, to generate interest and enthusiasm from the parents and from the school community, we were working with the teachers and with the students on what they wanted to see. And if you take a look at the purple jungle gym there, you'll see that one of the kindies had precogged exactly what he wanted, drawing us a picture of the purple jungle gym monkey bars there that we are hoping to put in place. And so that generated a lot of excitement from the school, from the parents, when we told them that, hey, this thing is on us. And when they finally saw it go away, they really rallied. This year, so far, just this year, we've raised $20,000 through bake sales, one-time donations, cake parades, move-a-thons, all the standard stuff. Our number to be able to do this rapidly and not have to wait on the board, kind of figuring out how much they can give from their side, is $30,000. And so that is why we have the $10,000 request from council to meet that shortfall and be able to move forward with installing this even in this fall. Like it could go in this school year, ideally before the winter comes. So that is our ask. The team is our principal, who is our collaborator with the school board, and she is in her second year out of 4. So she's got a nice tenure ahead of her, a very collaborative person. And the Home and School Executive Committee, including Kirsten Boileau, who has been on it for 19 years. She started when her oldest was a tiny one, and now her youngest are now the old ones. And this is my 3rd year serving on Home and School. And my kiddos are 6 and 8. There they are saying thank you. And that's my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to the delegate, thank you for the work that you've been doing on this. I think it's excellent, and the potential of having something up and running this year is fantastic. Unfortunately, you know, the rate that government tends to move isn't necessarily quick. So this is for funding for the 2025 budget year. I'm just wondering, if you don't get an answer from us in the interim, is that going to jeopardize you moving forward with this?
So do I say through the mayor? Okay. With all due respect to everyone involved, no, we have over $10,000 in our operating fund. So if we were to hear, yes, it has been approved, and yes, the money will be coming, then we can just use that money. We can also find other ways to do a quick raise, ask individuals, like we'll find a way if it becomes clear that there's a path. But if there is support from the council, then that will be able to make up for what we use from our own funds, which were not allocated towards this. And even with this year's in place, we will be building towards kind of a more permanent solution, that you know, bigger structure that will eventually be coming in the future. Thank you.
Anyone else? Have you asked any of the local businesses for support? Have you gone that route?
Absolutely. Yeah. So at the school picnic that we held in June, we had a silent auction, which raised around $2,000. And then the donations from the parents at the school raised another $1,000. So that was $3,000 from the picnic, with many local businesses contributing to that. We're doing our best to twist that home hardware arm. Like, come on, guys, you're right in our backyard. They say, well, we're a national organization. We're not going to support any particular individual place. We're like, we're really literally in your backyard. So we're still working on the home hardware connections, but definitely through local businesses as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, there is a recommendation before you to include the grant request of shelter movers and the grant request of Hearts Open for Everyone, understanding that both of those are subject to our budget deliberations. Someone like to move that? Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Cadeau.
Just confirming, where the recommendation is 2 of the 4 that we've heard from. I'm going to request that we add all 4 to budget deliberations. I think that it's, you know, we've heard 4 worthwhile causes. We're not making any determinations at this point, and for me, it makes sense to look at things holistically. So I would like to see all move forward.
I had a mover and seconder, right?
Yes, you might want to ask if that's acceptable to the mover.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay, so we have now a motion to consider all 4 requests during our budget deliberations. Is there any discussion on that, Councillor Schwint?
I guess I have a question for staff on how that affects their preparation. There must be a purpose as to why they recommend doing an initial evaluation now.
Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Yes, this is the our first attempt at a slightly revised grants process. We've always held the amounts of money for the budget process, so you can consider grants in the grand scheme of the budget when you're also looking at the tax rate for all of the other programs and services that you deliver. This year, we did look at all these organizations. They're all very important, the work that they're doing. I would say we typically, with our grants program, we have more asks than we have money for typically. For just rough numbers, and again, we don't want to focus on the numbers tonight, but it's about $32,000 in new asks, which would be a 50% increase in the grants budget. So staff, we're looking for direction for any organizations you thought were not something that the township would support with municipal tax dollars. if all the organizations that asked are directed to the budget process, we'll be preparing the budget with trying to provide some funding for all of them within the confines of what council, I suppose, provides in terms of our budget parameters, in terms of how much we can increase the budget next year.
Councillor Cadeau.
We have a lot of buckets for our grants. We've increased a number of them, and in one of the reports we saw today, I think that I saw in the financial implications a note that we may want to consider how we're funding these. I think what I also want to add is a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, we heard requests for funding as well that came outside of this process. Would it be worthwhile to look at like 2 timeframes? So we talk about this once during budget, but then maybe during the summer, we look at another bunch of requests, because I mean, people don't necessarily get the requests ready for our budget. So I'm just trying to brainstorm what is the best way to hear from the community and what are their financial needs and how can we best situate ourselves to meet those needs. Obviously, not everybody is going to get the funding. There's a limited pot, but I think that there's maybe a way that we can do things a little differently.
Yeah, so with our with the update to our grants policy, we tried to keep a regular annual grants process and very early in the budgeting process. So even before our budget parameters report comes forward, all four grant applicants have put in their requests. So this is moving the process early so staff can prepare a draft budget for you. We've also tried to keep, we sort of separated it into 3 categories: equity, diversity, inclusion, and belonging, arts and culture, and miscellaneous, which includes travel requests and things like that from local sports teams. So within the annual grants, we're trying to come up with those larger scale asks so we can put them in the budget. And then with the grants that come up throughout the year, there are smaller pots of money for organizations that may come forward with smaller asks. So that was our attempt to give multiple opportunities throughout the year. If it's something you want us to look at, we can continue to do so to see if there's any other way we can make improvements.
Councillor Bryant and then Councillor Schwinn.
Thank you. When is our budget parameters report coming forward? I think then we can have a more fulsome discussion at that point in time as to how to proceed.
We have quite a lot of budget information scheduled for you for September 10th.
Thank you.
Councillor Schwinn.
So I like Councillor Cadeau's point about having opportunities throughout the year for different grants to come forward, because different organizations operate at different timelines than we do as a council, and we have to respect that. So I agree. I like your thoughts there. At the same time, I don't think we should just keep on deferring a hard decision, because it just makes January even worse. We know there's not enough money to go around. We've got to prioritize the dollars we do have, and we have an operating report coming up in a little bit of time that we may not like too much, some of it. So I don't think including everything tonight, that's just kicking the can down the road, which we as a council didn't want to do earlier tonight. So I guess I'm opposed to including all 4. I think we have to make a decision tonight.
Okay, any other comments?
I'll respond, and I don't disagree with you. I mean, I would hate to kick the decision down the road just to make the exact same decision that we're deferring tonight. And if that's the case, then that's the case. I mean, we heard some compelling presentations, and I think that, if in a perfect world, we'd be able to fully fund them all. We don't live in a perfect world, unfortunately. I'm just going to pause on that thought.
Any other? Oh, I almost said Councillor Brenneman.
Thank you through you, Mayor Shantz, to council. One thing I can contribute is, over the last 17 years, watching various councils struggle with this various issue. I think, you know, to what our Director of Corporate Services, Jeff Smith, has outlined is staff have continued to try and refine the process to recognize that, you know, and many municipalities have struggled with this. There are many worthwhile causes that come forward. But what we've always been challenged by various councils to do is to come up with policies and grants criteria by which you can guide and evaluate. Because to Councillor Cadeau's points, yeah, there's lots of worthwhile causes. It's tough to say no, but also to other council members' points, it's also tough to say yes to everybody because you know, we have to balance the budget and deal with that as well. So, you know, I think we need to also reflect on the fact that over the years, the clerk's department has done a great job in terms of refining the process, the policy, the criteria, to hopefully help guide council in terms of the criteria by which to guide some of your decision making at the end of the day. And you know, I wanted to reflect on that because we're not the only ones that struggle with the grants process. As I said, there's many worthwhile causes, but at the end of the day, you try to shape things to guide where this council may want to go in terms of the criteria and the evaluation and the process to follow.
Anything else?
We had a motion and a second, and then I opened my mouth, and I'm kind of confused where we're at now.
I just wasn't sure. Tanya, did you want to comment?
Through you, Mayor, just to add on to what CEO Brenneman was saying is in the clerk's departments, we've also been talking about reviewing the grants policy in terms of who is eligible, different maybe times of the year that we would have intakes, you know, just tossing some ideas around, but we want to make that a data-driven decision or recommendation to council if we do want to make that change. And so we do have to wait to see what are applications coming in. And there's also the two sides of the grant program. There's the annual grants, which is what we're the item on the table right now. And then there's also the categorical grants, we'll call them. So that's your arts and culture, your EDIB, your special assistance, all that sorts of things. And those are the one-time, one-off throughout the year requests. But what we're finding is our budget is now pretty much zero in August. What do we do if there's requests now? And then it becomes not a question of who was worthy, but when they decided to apply or when their event was, or so we are discussing a lot of those types of challenges, but we do want to have that data to really reflect on before we would make a recommendation to council. So thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks for that context. That's helpful. And as difficult as it is, I think that I'll go back to the original motion that was made that I seconded, just to make things wonderful.
Clerk Smith, do you want us to jump back and forth or just defeat the motion that's on the floor?
I'm okay with whatever you want. I would just want the mover. Yes, the mover in this case to accept that.
I'm happy to.
Bringing along for a ride here.
Okay, so we're excuse me, we're back to the recommendation from staff. Correct? For the two, for the shelter movers and Hearts Open. Is that, I'm just looking to the two of you to make sure that I've got.
I appreciate the
understand.
discussion though. I truly do.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question.
Yeah, I sorry, and that was, I'm assuming mostly that question is when we come to budget, it'll be what the annual end of things of like how much will be discussed then, but yeah, I'm fine with that.
Everybody ready for the question? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you. Woolwich Environmental Advisory Committee recommendation to council to endorse ReForest Woolwich. Rebecca Schwartz of Woolwich Environmental Advisory Committee, WEAC.
Thank
Welcome,
you, Mayor
Rebecca.
Shantz. Thank you, council. Yeah, so Tanya is going to circulate a couple of documents, but I had also included them when I sent the initial memo document to council. This is just if you need a refresher or wanted to quickly review what we're discussing this evening. So I am here on behalf of WEAC, the Woolwich Environmental Advisory Committee. We are a working committee of council, and we are composed of a group of environmentally educated and active citizens who want to see the township develop in a way that is sustainable and equitable, and to continue to improve our natural resources and preserve the wonderful environment that we've been given here in Woolwich Township. We were founded in 2023, and we spent a little while kind of trying to determine what it is that this committee can do and should do for our township. And one of the things that we identified very early on was this idea of tree canopy coverage, especially in our urban and semi-urban areas within the township, is currently sitting around 16.3% of tree canopy coverage in our township. And we thought this would be a great thing for our committee, newly founded, to tackle, and that we felt like we could make some significant strides on. And we've been working with some other organizations just to get all of my short forms out of the way. We have WEAC, which is Woolwich Environmental Advisory Committee, which I sit with. We have T4W, sorry, Trees for Woolwich, which has been active in the township for a number of years now, planting trees and organizing just volunteer horsepower to get a lot of greening done in our region. So there was a initiative presented by Trees for Woolwich, a new initiative that would work in conjunction with the Bring Back the Maples program, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, planting trees on roadsides in Woolwich Township. So this new initiative would be called ReForest Woolwich. This was presented to WEAC by Mark Schwartz, and it's a program that we thought was really exciting. So we read through the draft proposal that is in front of you now, and was circulated by email ahead of time. The idea behind ReForest Woolwich is to aggressively plant trees, not only on township land, because there's only so much township land in the urban and semi-urban areas, but also to engage individual homeowners, whether that's businesses on industrial lands or retail zoned areas, and also engage homeowners in specifically urban residential areas and semi-urban residential areas to have a cohesive approach and a cohesive voice behind this idea of wanting to regreen and reforest our township. There's been a lot of volunteer effort put into determining some of these goals and to determine what an aggressive and achievable goal could be for reforesting the township. And we were really excited as WEAC to see a workable plan come across of our plates on something that we've already discussed is incredibly important to us as a committee. And we voted unanimously to support the continuing of this proposal. So we don't have necessarily control over the proposal and what's being determined there, but we wanted to state as a committee of council that we've reviewed this and various people with environmental backgrounds and education have investigated this proposal and tried to poke some holes through it just to get a sense of will it work and how will it work. And we wanted to present to council that we recommend that you also do some reading and try and poke holes in it, but then move to endorse the plan, as well as to direct staff to do a report on the long-term costs and benefits to the township as an organization. This plan probably will only work with significant support from the township whether that's in terms of willpower or legislation or funding. I think it's important for township staff to have control over that investigation and to be able to make a measured decision on whether or not this is the right proposal to move forward with in order to re-green the township. That's in summation. Woolwich Environmental Advisory Committee saw this proposal. We were really excited about it, and we wanted to voice our endorsement of it before council.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your work on a new committee as we sort of feel our way through it. I do have a question for you, though. You're essentially in the recommendation, you're asking us to endorse the project, but then get staff to bring us information. I wonder if that should be just to get staff to bring us information, and then we would endorse it once we have that fulsome picture.
Yeah, I think that both of those are necessary pieces of the puzzle, right? My hope was that there would be enough information present, in advance of this meeting. But if council feels that it'd be more appropriate to wait for a staff report before moving to that next stage, then I can understand that being a, reorganization of timelines.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Schwint.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I do want to understand this better. Everybody here likes trees. That's a given. It's just details we're trying to figure out. My number one question, I guess, is the 30% tree canopy cover in an urban setting. To me, I'm trying to picture that in a subdivision like Birdland, and the house is going to be 30-40% of the lot. It's going to be a driveway. There's going to be lawns. How realistic is that 30%? We also have roads and parks, etc. Where did that number come from?
Yeah, so 30% canopy cover is, it's not just pulled out of nowhere. There are municipalities in Canada that are getting really close. If you think of London, which is kind of considered forest city, when you look at their byline, City of London is approaching 30% canopy cover. They have obviously a mix of different uses, right? So you don't generally see a homogeneous canopy cover across the entire area. You would be seeing some areas like parklands approaching 70%. And then you would see residential areas, especially when there's those quarter-acre lots, right, which are more common in our actual urban settlement areas. Those would be less. So it's trying to expand out this 30% as an average across all of the urban and semi-urban areas. And then also with recognition of the fact that there's a lot of land, I'm just thinking of like, frontages for retail buildings or for industrial buildings where it's just lawn, which serves a purpose, but there can also be a purpose served by trees, and by increasing tree canopy cover, there's a lot of advantages, right, to energy savings and just general urban cooling and stuff. So educating in private landowners on advantages of doing trees over just lawn, I think there's a lot of advances that can be made without putting undue onus on whether it's the little quarter-acre lot folks or on township lands, parks and roadsides and so on.
Okay. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca, for speaking on behalf of WEAC tonight. I'll just to provide some more context for Councillor Schwint. When they presented at WEAC, that was a big topic of discussion, is that there's a number of commercial buildings or factories and industrial properties that have land available that's sitting kind of vacant from the perspective of trees. So one of the areas that ReForest Woolwich was looking at was engaging with those partners to see about getting trees planted on those lands to increase the amount of canopy coverage.
Go ahead.
So, brings up some more questions then. If I was on an industrial piece of property, for example, and not using it today, it'd be a great idea to plant couple hundred trees there, get the tree can to cover, but 5 years from now, my business wants to expand. And I can't expand because I can't cut down the trees. Are we, I guess, handcuffing businesses from doing the right thing on the short term? And that's something maybe we should consider going forward, is not tie their hands. Maybe those trees are removable if a business wants to expand, but encourage the tree today, because that's the best time to plant it is today. My other, or two other concerns, I guess, one is Elmira centric. I'd really encourage we as council, and we're doing reports like this, include Breslau and some of the other centers. I think we as a township, we have to look beyond the borders of Elmira. And the final point, the question, I'm talking about trust fund or foundation. Are you better off without the township? Because won't we just be in the way? Not saying we don't support it, but
yeah, that's like it's a super relevant question. I appreciate it very much, Councillor Schwinn. So I just wanted to speak momentarily to your previous point about the likelihood of kind of handcuffing folks with trees that they then are unable to remove. Currently, the township doesn't have any sort of bylaw governing the removal of trees on private lands. So in that sense, it's kind of it's not an issue yet. It may become an issue in the future. So I think that's definitely something to look at, you know, as township is continually involved in the evolution and the greening of space across the township on private land. That's definitely something to consider. And then as to your second question about would we be better off without township council? I am aware of the 2 billion trees federal program that provides significant funding to organizations where they can green, especially within association with the township, and that funding would not be available to a private organization without the support of the township. And that's like a key part of making this work, is to access federal funding, and there may even be provincial funding available. It's often tied though to working within the context of a municipal program.
Thank you, Councillor Cadeau.
At the risk of upsetting Councillor Schwint, I want to focus on Elmira for a second. The Elmira downtown core is absent of many trees. If you go down that downtown core, the problem, and I'm part of the BIA and we've been looking at this, the problem with putting trees in is the root system. They won't be able to develop, they won't be able to grow and thrive. Would this organization be able to help facilitate the planting of trees in a downtown core where the costs aren't just, you know, putting a tree in the ground and hoping for the best, but you actually have to invest $10,000 in a canister to hold a tree? Would we be able to see the reforestation of our downtown core, for instance, through this program?
I think that's very much like at the discretion of township staff and council, to be honest. That's like, these are sorts of technical questions that need to be worked out, you know, in good faith between whatever future organization wants to undertake this reforestation effort and township council and staff, who have like currently the responsibility for street trees rests with staff and with council. I can understand why they would want to yield that responsibility, but then, as you have correctly pointed out, maintenance is a very significant part of that equation. So I think I would want to leave that to an eventual arrangement between staff and whatever this future program might be.
Anyone else? WIAC has made a recommendation. Does someone?
Annie was on there. She wants to speak.
Oh, Annie.
Yeah,
Ms. MacArthur.
I just wanted to speak to the piece about the downtown core, and Jared may want to jump online, but you know, I think there's been a plan developed to green the downtown core. I think that has continued to be pushed off in light of the alleged you know, rehabilitation of that by the region. So I think that was originally supposed to happen, you know, in 2022, and I think it's been pushed off, and I'm not even sure what that date is. So, you know, I think that's always been our notion that that greening would happen when that infrastructure project commenced.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Freeze.
I just want to point out as well, in the downtown Elmira core area plan, there is plans for trees with those, I forget what they're called, cells, both on the street and then also in the proposed parking area. And that would be proposed through annual budget reviews of the downtown core area plan and allocations of funding to do the various projects in the core area plan. So it was identified that we would need significant funding, but especially for that parking area to put those trees in. And we were planning on bringing it back at a future budget year.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Does anyone want to move the motion or? No.
I think maybe the suggestion of looking at asking staff to investigate the cost benefit, what that type of partnership would look like, how it would kind of affect the township before an endorsement would probably be, I'm going to guess, at least more comfortable for Councillor Schwinn. But also for the rest of council, it's just I'd like to have the information ahead of us and kind of what the township end of things would look like before we go through with an endorsement.
So are you moving, or do we need a motion or direction? Are you moving?
Yeah, I'll motion for that.
Okay. Councillor Cadeau.
Sorry, Mayor Shantz, just to clarify, that's just number 2. So it's the request from WEAC to direct staff to prepare a report on the long-term costs and benefits only. Thank you.
Yes,
that's correct.
Further discussion? Councillor Schwint.
Maybe take that one step further and also recommendation on a structure. Let's talk about a foundation in here. Maybe staff would have ideas on how that foundation or body would be set up.
Yeah, I think Councillor Grant suggested that it maybe just isn't in the wording that's on the page.
Yeah, it was, I believe the wording also referred to long-term impacts, and I can probably pull it up again.
Long-term costs and benefits.
Cost and benefits, yeah, impacts of this project. But yeah, I would be fine with adding in the looking at how this relationship would work with ReForest, Woolwich. As I know they're still kind of in the early stages, so that formation of that partnership, what that may entail.
Okay, anything else? All those in favor? No. Carried. Oh, Ms. MacArthur. Sorry, I'm looking around the room and not at the screen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess just a couple of points of clarification for staff. Obviously, we want to bring back some report in advance of budget deliberations. So I guess is that okay with council would be my first question. The second piece would be just clarification on the report. And when you talk about long-term benefits, are you looking at the impacts of greenhouse gas reductions associated with this, just the impact of the increase in canopy cover, just so that, what doesn't affect one department, it'll be a couple, so make sure that we hone in on the details that will be beneficial to council at budget time.
Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Tanny. I think part of that would be the financial impacts we may experience, as well as how it aligns with our 10-year plan, our commitments to green energy or reducing our carbon footprint. There's I think Annie's kind of struck on that there's a number of departments that it may impact. There may be some planning impacts there as well. As we've already indicated, we're looking at some greening in the downtown area. How could those coalesce and align, or is there any areas that could potentially be conflicts? I think when we're looking at a long-term cost benefit analysis, it's bringing up some of those holes that maybe need to be poked into the plan, like Councillor Schwint brought up of when we talk about corporations, is that tying their hands in some ways? There are different ways in the township that maybe we haven't looked at fully. I just kind of would like to see a more fulsome kind of analysis of it.
Okay, we already voted on it, and so is that do you have what you need?
Yeah.
And Yeah, yeah, she did. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have 5 car seat clinic requests and Sara Buecker. We're running out of people.
Hello, I'm
Welcome.
Sara Buecker. I am a CPST or Child Passenger Safety Technician and a very busy mom of 3. I recently just became certified to help others keep their kids safe in the car. And I decided to start a car seat clinic in Elmira, which is planned for September 14th at the fire hall. I've noticed a lot of car seat misuse, especially in the Woolwich Township, and I'm hoping we can get some sort of funding going for any parents that may show up and do not have the funding to purchase a new car seat that is safe for their kids. We have helped going in other clinics with fellow techs. We have helped other parents get car seats that they could otherwise not afford when they showed up with unsafe car seats, whether they were expired, missing pieces, not certified to use in Canada, just many different things that made them unsafe. So yeah, we're looking to get some sort of funding going in Woolwich Township for any parents that may need it. Car seats are a safety device. They keep our children safe in the vehicles, and the rate of misuse is incredibly high, standing at 73% currently. So 73% of car seats are used incorrectly, and 30% of car seats of kids are put in boosters before they meet the weight requirement in Canada, which is 40 pounds. After that, 52% of kids are put into seatbelts without a booster before they achieve a safe belt fit, because the laws in Canada, unfortunately, do not reflect what is safe. So we often see a lot of kids show up that are too young to be out of a booster, but are out of a booster because the parents are uneducated on what's safe. So the costs of living are rising with you, as everyone is well aware of. And with that, the cost of car seats are also going up, making them a lot more unaffordable to any parents that are already struggling to make ends meet. So having some sort of funding in place for when a parent shows up and can't afford those car seats would greatly benefit, keep our kids safe, keep crash statistics or lower crash statistics, which would lower ambulance use and medical use and all of that stuff. Car seat safety education is very easily accessible. Unfortunately, no one is aware of it. There are many websites, many social media pages, Facebook groups that are always willing to help. Unfortunately, a lot of parents are not aware of it, as well as we live in a very Mennonite area where a lot of Mennonites are also unaware of that. I see that a lot, unfortunately. So our goals for car seat clinics and specifically the funding for car seats would be providing free car seats for caregivers that show up with unsafe car seats, such as young children that have outgrown like an infant car seat already, which we see a lot. A young child that is in a forward-facing car seat, but their car seat is not able to be rear-faced. Young child in a booster, such as like under 40 pounds, under 4 years old, or an older child without a booster, or even expired, damaged, and non-Canadian certified car seats. Along with these free car seats, they would also obviously get a lot of our car seat education from me and other local techs. There are not very many, unfortunately, local to us anymore. And then we would always provide ongoing and easily accessible support for all caregivers. How this works, we would like to see a partnership with Canadian Tire to provide car seats, because they always have a lot in stock, and they always have ones that are recommended for a variety of scenarios. Any questions?
Counselor Grant.
Thank you. I have a few friends that have used the services of car seat techs to kind of provide them with education. I'm just wondering if you could give us a little insight into the clinics that you're holding. Is there any cost to the participants? for the
No,
clinic?
as a CPST, unless we provide our own insurance, we are actually not allowed to ask for any sort of money. We are allowed to accept donations or tips, but we do not charge for our services. Everything is free.
And what is the cost for for yourself to run a clinic? Is it you're renting space or you?
More often than not, the places we do rent offer that space for free, like the fire hall. The fire chief, Brian, he has willingly allowed us use of the hall, and basically the costs would be like, which we cover all the costs. It would just be the funding for car seats, just car seats specifically. Printing, like we are printing coloring pages for this clinic. Other than that, not much.
Okay.
Me and the other tech, we actually live in Wellington County, so we would be making a little bit of a drive here, but once again, that's all costs that we absorb ourselves.
And then as I don't have children myself, I'm not really up on the average cost of car seats. So I know you kind of mentioned in your ask for funding, the ability to provide free car seats. So how many car seats would be ideal for you?
It varies on how busy the clinic is. The two clinics that I have participated in where we provided free car seats, the one clinic we gave away, I think 3 car seats. A mom that was living at a shelter, she showed up with her kids and she had several of her kids in unsafe, very expired, not a great fit car seats. So we gave 3 car seats to them. The other one, I think we gave away 2 car seats. So, and it varies greatly depending on the needs. And I have already reached out to a few different residents of Elmira to kind of guide them on the car seat safety journey.
And then what's like the average cost of a car seat?
That is very dependent on what kind of car seat you're looking for. I would say at least $300.
Okay.
That, once again, that's very dependent. Boosters are cheaper.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Counselor Grant, Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you to the delegate. The stats are alarming. 73% of car seats were installed or used incorrectly. Now, the people that would come to the clinic, you're not going to be replacing 73% of car seats for people. You're going to help them reinstall them properly. There's a very small percentage of ones that are maybe expired or don't fit correctly. And those are the limited ones that you would be replacing, right?
Yes. The one clinic we did, we had 19 car seats show up, and of those we replaced 2 or 3 of them. So yes, we would mostly just be teaching them how to install correctly, how to get their child harnessed correctly, and obviously making sure that their older kids, like especially in older, in a booster.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
There, not unless someone wants to make one. Okay, thank you. We have no unfinished business, but Tiffany is here from TRAC, and she is listed as part of the presentation with Councillor Cadeau on 14.2. So with council's indulgence, I moved that up. Councillor Cadeau, did you want to do an introduction, or we just turn it over?
Yeah, I'm happy to. TRAC has been up and going now for several months. We've had our first meeting several months ago, and we have our next one scheduled for next month. As a part of TRAC, we have really wanted to come forward to council twice a year to give an update just with the status of things. So this marks our first update to council, our first update to the public with how things are moving along with TRAC. And so with that, I will turn it over to Tiffany.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors and staff. As Councillor Cadeau has indicated, this is the first biannual on behalf of TRAC, the Technical Remediation Advisory Committee. And our hope is to keep it at a very high level tonight, not get into the technical details, with our full intent to provide you with digestible amounts of technical information and updates as we move through the process over the next few years. I guess I'm the one that's in control of this, right? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there we go. So this is the outline that we have tonight. I'm really going to probably move quite quickly. I'm assuming that you have this presentation in your documentation, and therefore there's a lot of details included in that for you to revisit. So I'm going to move quite quickly through the first 3 points and really kind of try and do the balance or the majority of the discussion here in the status update and the next steps, just so that you can see progress here in terms of what we're doing. So TRAC's terms of reference, back in April, you were all involved with approving our new structure for the Technical Remediation Advisory Committee. And so I won't really dwell too much on this, but essentially we're here to serve the township in a technical and advisory capacity, provide regular summaries of the issues at hand, and ensure that there's an appropriate level of review of documentation, reports, et cetera, that we receive, and that we have an opportunity to ask questions and bring forward concerns or recommendations from the township's perspective in their priorities. We are focused on the legacy issues of the environmental impact from the Lanxess property. And there's, opportunity for us in this forum to be able to make recommendations for actions by the township. Also, the public and regulatory engagement aspect is an important part of this, especially in the next few years. It's the TRAC meetings are a forum by which public concerns about the legacy issues and the historical impact and the remediation of those it's an opportunity for the public to be able to bring those concerns forward. Also, the forum provides an opportunity for updates from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Grand River Conservation Authority, and the Regional Municipality of Waterloo, as various regulatory bodies and people that are concerned about the future of the aquifers in the area. Also, one of the key things that we want to accomplish in the near future is provide and recommend community priorities for the aquifer cleanup post-August 2028. And I'm going to be getting into why that date matters here in a few minutes. The structure is fairly simple. We have we have 7 members from the community, and they include an environmental consultant, engineering consulting, whose specialty is in air, a senior hydrogeologist, I'm sorry, he's retired from the region of Waterloo, a senior planner who also is a member of the Source Water Protection Committee, and is a retired senior planner from Wellington County, and a professor of toxicology from the University of Guelph, and a community member who has expertise in the small drinking water systems, which has some of the drinking water standards experience. And also we have members that have a tremendous historical understanding of what has been happening in the community with respect to this legacy impact. We also have myself, an independent third-party technical person, and Stacy Bruce sitting to my right here, who's our staff support person, and the stakeholders of the Ministry of Environment, Lanxess, and the GRCA that participate in our TRAC meetings. I'm not going to get into this in any detail, but there are these regulatory tools and instruments that the Ministry of Environment has put in place over the years that really drive and guide what Lanxess needs to do, what they need to monitor, how they need to report the information, what they need to remediate by when. Basically, the original order came out in 1984, and there have been a number of amendments to that order that have addressed various things that needed to be addressed in order to see progress in the remediation. So the 2000 was the most recent amendment to the order, and I would say the environmental compliance approval that was issued in October of 2021 is really the document that sort of dictates what the annual monitoring reports and what the monthly progress reports look like and contain. But the details are there, and there's each of those amendments basically addressed a particular matter that came up over the years in order to move forward with additional remediation. This is another sort of concept that I think is important to remember when reading these documents. There's different standards for different things. So I wanted to, like, you might see the same chemical name, but there would be a different standard for a groundwater sample or a surface water sample or soil or sediment and air. So it's all of these things have been monitored, measured, investigated over the years. And so if you pick up a report, it's always important to kind of take a look at what it is you're actually looking at and why the standard might be different. So a little bit of an orientation here. Again, I just want to kind of give I find these pictures amazing just to see the changes over time. We're sitting there at the township office. Down the street on Church Street there is the Lanxess property. The south end of the property has the Kanakajig Creek, but the creek kind of runs through the property as well. You'll see reference to what's called the east side, which is everything on the right of the property there. But there's also east side of the creek on the property. So it's that's always something that you should sort of just be mindful of when you're reading different reports. That was back in 1930, that image. Then in the 40s and 70s, so the property has had some type of industrial activity really since the 1800s. But in terms of the legacy sort of activities that we're dealing with, really it starts in the 1940s and through to the 70s, where we had Uniroyal. Then that was later bought over by Crompton Chemtura, no, Crompton, then Chemtura, and then Lanxess. And these areas on the property are really the source of the legacy issues that we're dealing with off property. So you'll see there's ponds along the right-hand side of the property or the east side. There's in the lower part of the property is gravel pits, old gravel pits, and then there were other waste management facilities that were on the left side of on the west side of the property. All of these early on were not lined ponds or anything, so the waste infiltrated into the ground and impacted the groundwater. There was also excess runoff off-site, so that impacted soil, and then that soil moved into the surface water system, the creek, which then affects the sediment. So that's very high level sort of understanding of how the legacy issues really got going or started. Today, the site looks like this. Those ponds and gravel pits were remediated in 1989, I think it was. And that now what we're dealing with is what was left behind. Basically, there's contaminants on the property and there's remediated groundwater off the property, but also we have some hotspots that still exist. So the areas of investigation, remediation, and monitoring that, again, when you're reading these reports, you've got an on-site containment of the contamination and monitoring. So there's contamination on-site that's being contained through pumping and treating the groundwater. But also there are measures to keep the soil on-site as well. There's also off-site containment and monitoring of groundwater and off-site containment removal of soil and groundwater in terms of getting rid of the contaminants in the groundwater and in the soil. And then there's what we call floodplain management, which includes the creek. So these are areas that are under investigation currently, and you will see a little bit more about what exactly that has entailed here shortly. So the Kanakajig Creek has had there was a historical risk assessment done, but since that original risk assessment was done, really the regulatory framework in which risk assessments are done has changed significantly. This more recent risk assessment has been done according to those new standards. And we received a first draft of that back in 2023. I think it was maybe 22. And more recently, we received a second draft when the ministry provided comments and the predecessor to TRAC provided comments. We are waiting for the second draft of this document, which should be addressing those comments, all being well. It should be coming our way in the not too distant future, hopefully this fall. This slide is strictly to make the point that the hydrogeology in this area is very complex. This is a schematic or a cartoon of the different aquifers or zones that groundwater exists. There you'll see terminology like the superficial aquifer, an upper aquifer, an upper and lower municipal aquifer. And these are all being monitored and treated specifically with different objectives and standards. The 2028 deadline that I mentioned refers to the upper and lower municipal aquifer. So the approach that has been taken to date has been one of containment and pumping and treating. So when you have contamination of this nature in a very, very large area, what you want is to be able to contain it, characterize it first, and then contain it, and then be able to remove as much mass over time as you can. Currently, we're at the outer limit of the benefit of doing this. We've reached a point where the concentrations, the benefit, the return for the effort of pumping is diminishing because most of the easily accessible groundwater has been pumped and cleaned. At this point, we're seeing sort of some wells where they are pausing pumping so that it sort of draws in more contaminants and then it pumps again. So these are ways of sort of basically squeezing out as much as you can out of the aquifer using pump and treat. So in this regard, the next steps are going to be really looking at ways to enhance removal of contaminants. And there are a number of technologies out there, but you always have to look at what conditions exist and why one technology might be better than another. So that's really where we're at now, is looking at some of that, those technologies, and to see what would be best in this particular setting. Again, on-site versus off-site, and upper aquifers and containment. These are concepts and things that you'll see in the documentation and that we will get into a little deeper in future presentations and updates. So the status update. Let me just get here. So remediation of the offsite municipal aquifer. As I mentioned, the objective is to have it meet the Ontario drinking water standards by 2028. Now, one of the sort of big concept questions that exists is that every single square inch of the aquifer or not that has to meet that objective? Or is it, if you put in a well and you pumped it, it needs to be Ontario drinking water standards? These are questions that we're going to have to grapple with as a community to establish what our priorities are, what our objectives are as a township. The other thing, obviously, is the fact that we have to start looking at other technologies to be able to get at these harder to reach aquifer areas to remediate what's left. It's the law of diminishing returns, basically. And it's very common for sites like this to exhibit these kinds of challenges. The Ministry of Environment has requested Lanxess to identify next steps. And we are waiting to have a technical experts meeting to try and get into some of these discussions and sort of take action in an updated remedial action plan on next steps. There currently, I have put this bullet in here, there are currently exists constraints on using the municipal aquifer in any way, shape, or form right now. And they're driven by two aspects. One is the region of Waterloo's agreement to rest the aquifer in Elmira, and not to use it as a drinking supply for the region until cleanup has been achieved. So that's region mandate. The other is that local municipalities around the types of uses allowed or restricted basically have forbidden the use for using things like for truck washing or putting in a well. So you can't put in a well in a serviced area, for example. So these are some constraints that exist that have to be addressed through some of the conversations that we will be having. The creek risk assessment, we're waiting, as I mentioned, for the second revision of the draft human health ecological risk assessment. They're going to be responding to the Ministry of Environment's comments and TRAC, or previously TAG-RAC comments. One of the things that I forgot to explicitly mention earlier was that the risk assessment is really a voluntary thing. It's not a ordered thing for them or action to take, which to date, we've been very appreciative of the fact that they've done this. But as we see these comments come from the ministry, we'll have to wait and see how much of those requests get carried out, because there's nothing in place right now that mandates them to do those things, although they have expressed willingness to address and to complete the risk assessment to the satisfaction of the ministry and to TRAC. The public communication. So Engage WR has actually been launched. We are in the process, a working group of the committee is working to populate that page or portal for TRAC as right now in this quarter. So we're working on a timeline to provide some background information on what happened when, just to provide sort of information for people who might be interested in knowing the history of the site. It does take some time to read through documents, and we're hoping to make it user-friendly and have graphics where it makes 1,000 words go away, basically. And next steps, As I mentioned, Engage WR has been launched, but we're populating that. We want to build consensus within TRAC around community priorities with respect to the municipal aquifer cleanup post 2028. That is a real priority, as Councillor Swin, who is the appointed chair, neglected to mention that he's the appointed chair to TRAC, with Councillor Schwint and, or sorry, I meant Cadeau, Councillor Cadeau, and Councillor Schwint and Mayor Shantz, who has had a lot of experience with predecessor committees. But we have to also not only build consensus for the community priorities within the group, but we also need to develop a process to consult with the broader public. And so that's also on our to-do list. These are best guess estimates as to when this might be tackled, and that's Q2 2025 is when we think we'll need to get that done, because we would like to have all this wrapped up by the end of 2026. Technical experts meeting has been scheduled in September, and that is also when our next TRAC meeting is. And additional resources, these are the most recent documents that I would point you to. These are live links to the Engage WR site where you can download those reports. In future presentations, we hope to just get into a little more visual mapping and showing some data around cleanup and things like that. But thank you very much for your time and attention. I know you got a long night ahead of you, so. Any
Thank
questions?
you for that, Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks, Mayor. Through you, thanks to Tiffany for that presentation. Really appreciate it. I think that I just have two questions for an interested audience, public who may be hearing about this for the first time. Can you just elaborate on, well, where do we get our water from?
Oh, yes.
And then I guess the second question is, we're pumping and treating hundreds, if not thousands of liters of water per day. What's happening with that water currently?
Okay.
So those two.
Thank you, Councillor Cadeau. Through Madam Chair. So we are currently, actually have been since the early 90s, getting pipeline water from the region of Waterloo. So this aquifer is in a resting state. It's being pumped and treated underneath our feet, underground. But the water that we are drinking from our taps here in Elmira are supplied from the region of Waterloo through a pipeline. The second question, sorry.
What happens to that treated water?
Oh, yes. So there's an enormous amount of water gets pumped and treated. It gets discharged, measured, monitored, and discharged into the creek. That's basically what happens to it. So there is an ongoing recognition that it's tremendous waste of good water, quite frankly, that's being discharged into the creek, and a lot of energy that's used to clean that water. And one of the things that has been discussed and looked at is how can we make a greener, more sustainable option in the future. So that's all part of the discussion that we're going to be doing.
And that water that's put back in the creek is drinking water standard.
Correct. It meets it. Yeah.
To be clear for
Yeah,
anyone
it
listening.
meets the Ontario Drinking Water Standard. Every drop of it.
This is more a comment. I know that Tiffany mentioned it, but the next meeting is September 12th, 6 p.m. right here in these council chambers. Those members of the public that are interested in this, I certainly welcome you to come on out. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. Our hope is very much to engage with the public, and we're figuring out the process.
Okay. Are there any questions for Tiffany or Councillor Cadeau? No. Thank you for the presentation. And
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support on the
Yeah,
committee.
no, it's a
been
pleasure to
very
work
much
with each
appreciated.
of you. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, we have a couple of items on the consent agenda. Let me see, recommendations from Committee of the Whole and a notice of hearing September 9th. Do I have to read that notice? No. Moved by Councillor Grant, seconded by Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor? That's carried. Staff reports and memos, quarterly report, Director of Finance, Mr. Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor Shantz. Through you and to council, I'm just going to give you a really brief overview of the Q2 second quarter variance report. So you may have noticed in your agenda package that I've made some slight improvements. I should turn on, sorry, just going to turn on the Zoom. I've made some slight improvements to the presentation of the document, and that's my intention going forward to really improve the financial reporting that you'll be getting every quarter, and then hopefully towards budget as well. Incrementally improve some of the reporting and some of the information that you'll be receiving. There was just some cosmetic changes here with the layout of the report. Put a little logo on there and just made it a little bit easier to read. And you'll also notice that the 2024 total variance column, that's a little column in green, was also added. And essentially that's budget minus actuals will give you that variance amount. And that total variance is actually calculated based on that remaining budget amount. So it just saves you from doing the calculation. I plan on improving some of these little improvements as I can make them throughout the reporting piece. So overall, we're in pretty good shape. We've spent about 48.9% of the budget. We're halfway through the year. So we would expect to spend about 50% of the budget. We have 51.1% remaining. Not all of the expenses are evenly distributed. Winter control, for example, will be front-ended at the beginning of the year. Things like some of our capital construction will come more towards the end of the year. But generally, we should expect about 50% of the budget to be spent now, and that's essentially what we see. So I don't have any significant concerns with our current projections, with one kind of major exception, and that is the wastewater. On the rate side, it's the wastewater deficit, essentially. So on the water side, we have 146,000 slight deficit. I believe we can make that up through catch-up billings. We're already in July seeing a positive balance on the water side. The wastewater side is definitely more concerning. We're at 538,000. Through the July financial statements, we were over 600,000. That's due to two main reasons. One is an increase in I&I or infill and infiltration costs. That's really related to the wet weather events that we've had. And just to bring to council's attention also that this is to June 30th. So you probably remember that we've had a very wet summer even after June 30th. So it's likely that this deficit will continue throughout the year. So there's additional costs related to that I&I issue. And just for council's benefit, I've learned a little bit about how wastewater cost works, but essentially on the water bills, we charge users for water, and then we charge them on the wastewater side as well. So when we have a very wet summer, we have those wastewater costs, we incur those costs, but we don't have anyone to charge, essentially. It's rain coming, so there's no one to essentially bill. So we have increased costs, but we don't have the matching revenue component. The other piece with the wastewater costs is we're short on revenue, essentially. We haven't pinpointed the exact reason, but we know at least part of the reason is industrial users. They haven't been using as much revenue. So we're still trying to pinpoint exactly what that revenue shortfall is and present council with recommendations on how to close that revenue gap. So one thing I do want to remind council is we have a water and wastewater rate study. We're undergoing that currently. We have some very preliminary findings from that, but we plan on presenting that to council in October of this year. And I'll be coming with a much more in-depth analysis specifically on the water and wastewater reserves, our current state, what this projection, and some of the recommendations coming out of that study to help address some of that gap. So there will be a much more in-depth analysis, particularly on the rate side of things coming in October. But I'll just, members of SMT are here and I'm here as well, but I'll just open the floor to any questions that anyone has related to this report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bryant and Councillor Schwint.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if it's going to be Colm or Jared that can answer this one for me. We know we've got a wastewater deficit. Do we know how much of that is due to the infiltration issue? Do we have any way of monitoring that?
Through you, Mayor Shantz, I'll defer to Director H.O.P.E to maybe answer some of those infiltration questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, through Mayor Shantz, to Councillor Bryant. So we do a good job of monitoring our flows right now in Breslau, St. Jacobs, and Elmira. But it's difficult to tell at this stage where our INI and what that relates to. I think there's a number of pieces on this wastewater deficit that we are needing to explore from a staff perspective. But I think the good news side is we have a good handle on our wastewater monitoring. We've tightened up a lot of systems, namely in Breslau in particular. We've been doing, as council's aware, we've been doing a cured in place pipelining program for a number of years now that is funded from wastewater, and that is a very cost-effective way to tighten up our systems. I think Breslau has had some attention. St. Jacobs is currently undergoing attention on Albert Street and Water Street. That's a significantly leaky system and has been for some time. And now I think we're turning our attention to Elmira, and you will see that'll be the primary focus for staff moving into 2025 and beyond. But I think to Colm's point, it is a factor with wet weather, but I think there are other things at foot here and that we need to get to the bottom of, revenue, namely being one of them. Looking at billings and that sort of thing too. And that's a snapshot in time as well, just when billings come in. So there is always a bit of a gap on some of that as well. But I think we'll stay tuned for the Director of Finance's more in-depth report, I think, to get into some of that. But I hope that answers some of your question, Councillor Bryant.
Okay, and further to that, how much did we increase the wastewater this year? Was it 5%? Do we have a number on that? I'm trying to remember. I know we increased it, but I can't remember what the number was.
Through you, Mayor Shantz, I'm not sure exactly. I can, as we're talking, I'm sure I can look that up.
Okay, I'd be curious to know what our increase was, because we can't just keep going back at the public with huge increases in this. We've got to find the issues and resolve those versus coming after the public for more money all the time.
Mr. Brenneman.
Yeah, sorry, just through you, Madam Mayor, just a point of clarity to Councillor O'Brien on that. I would just draw council's attention to what we discussed though at budget, which was to acknowledge that we haven't done a water and wastewater study review since 2005. Our rates are significantly behind. There will be increases that will be coming to help us address, to keep pace with what our real costs are related to water and wastewater. But as our new Director of Finance has indicated, what that will look like will come forward in October. I would suggest that what Councillor, I believe, Schwint had suggested and council supported was just to recognize that there would be a future report come forward this year on water wastewater study. And it was to bump up the rates to recognize that we don't want to play too much catch up all in one particular year, perhaps, but recognizing we will have increases in rates. So I don't want to set the expectation in the public that there won't be increase in rates, because there hasn't been a review since 2005. It's long overdue, and there will be some catch up that we will need to play.
Councillor Schwint.
Yeah, I guess on that increase we did last budget probably didn't go far enough. So my take home message looking at these numbers, because we're 10% short on revenue. That's significant. So my question was going to be, should we be looking at another interim increase for the balance of the year? Because 10% is 10%. If we keep on digging the hole, that scares me. I've always been taught, you're in a hole, first thing, stop digging, and we're still digging. So that's something I think council should consider for the September meeting, is what another 5% increase would do. Would that at least stop the hole from expanding or not for the balance of the year? Because tax increases aren't nice, but costs are up. But on that, I guess my question to staff was going to be on the billing side of things. Are we current on our billings? I know of 2 residents who received notices from tenanted properties that were in arrears pushing 12 months. And I know land owners are responsible for those bills, but 12 months is a little bit over the top.
Through your Mayor Shantz to Councillor Schwint, I believe we are behind in the billings. I wish I had a better answer for you, honestly, about where exactly this shortfall in revenue, but I do believe we're not billing everything we should be. So we're in the process of doing an analysis right now on consumption and where we're missing consumption pieces, but we don't have the answers right now. I hope to have more information when we present the water wastewater study, a more complete picture. And just to answer Councillor Bryant's question, it was a 6.6% increase in 2024.
So that wasn't where I was going with the billings. Are we current on the customers we know we have? Are we getting those bills out on time, and are we on top of any arrears?
We do bill every month and every 2 months, so I'm not sure why they wouldn't be receiving bills unless it's a new account and we didn't have their information, but we should be on top of any billings.
Just going back to your suggestion that we maybe do an interim increase, I wonder if Mr. Lynn has any words of wisdom or advice on what the implications of that might be.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would definitely wait until the October report when we look at it more holistically with the entirety of the water wastewater rates. I'm as concerned, I think, as council about this and really understanding kind of what's driving this. I would hate to push up rates without knowing exactly what the implications are, and then to maybe have to do it again during budget time or after the report. I'd want to at least know what the gap is and what we have to do to close that gap and how much a potential, say, 5% increase is going to take us to close that gap. I'd rather do something like that than just arbitrarily add 5% because we're short on wastewater revenue without really knowing the reason why.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cadeau.
Thanks for that. I like where the conversation's going. I think my concern is if we continue the route we're going, we're looking at close to $1 million deficit on this. So I tend to agree with Councillor Schwint. We know we're in a deficit already. We know we're going to continue to build up a deficit. Shouldn't we do something to adjust it now? And I recognize we have a rate study coming up in October, so it would be a little bit, we'd be jumping the gun a little bit to make an adjustment, say today or later next month. But I'm concerned about that, and I think that report should be able to give us options on how to address that in the interim, not just waiting until the next budget.
Okay.
Just to respond through the mayor, we're also coming in, believe it's September 10th with a budget parameters report. We could probably provide additional information. I think during that time we could provide additional information. It's just in less than 2 weeks. We could probably provide additional information, and then if council wanted to make a decision, then at least that's before even the water wastewater study comes out. I can at least provide additional reserve balance information then.
That just was my next question, is what is the water wastewater reserve balances? I know we won't like them, but I think that's important information to have. I'm wondering if in the future years on the Q2 financials, we could get all the reserve balances just for information purposes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Other questions? No? Okay, thank you. We'll see you next month. Okay, West Montrose Covered Bridge. Our planner, Sherwin Maloney. You've been so patient.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Just gonna keep this really brief. The recommendation that is before you is to direct staff to proceed with the process of amending the designated heritage bylaw for the West Montrose Bridge rehabilitation. The bridge is in poor condition and in need of repair. The proposed changes to the bridge will be in kind and will maintain the overall character of the bridge. Heritage impact assessment was requested by staff to determine the potential impacts of the changes on the existing heritage attributes with respect to the bridge and the surrounding area. It was reviewed by staff and the Heritage Committee and determined the proposed changes are appropriate and maintain the historical nature of the bridge. Staff is requesting it is requested that staff be directed to proceed through the process to amend the designated bylaw. In the report, it outlines the process that's involved. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you. Are there questions? Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. No question. The Heritage Committee did endorse what Sherwin is recommending, and I would move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Grant. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a memo from the WEAC committee for a request for no idling bylaw. And Ms. Freeze is available for questions. And Mr. Smith is available for questions. If anyone has questions on the memo.
I'll maybe speak to this a little bit. This came from a WEAC meeting in which we were discussing the issue of idling cars, specifically on township property. So the request was for staff to investigate potentially including a bylaw in a future kind of amendment to implement one of these bylaws. And the WEAC group went off and did some kind of information gathering and has provided kind of a preliminary review of the different idling bylaws that neighboring cities and townships have. So I believe that this report is really looking towards council to ask staff to evaluate the attached material and come up with what an idling bylaw would look like.
Okay. Are there any? Councillor Schwint?
I understand the rationale for this and fully support the no idling signs on township property. That makes a lot of sense to me. To make material change, it's got to be a change in society's desire for this. One more bylaw, it's not going to make a difference. One more bylaw is going to it's going to take cost staff time in designing the bylaw, bring it before council, talking about it, trying to enforce it. And we're not going to enforce it. We might give warnings. We're not going to be enforcing it. We're better off spending that time on education, signage, and proactive measures like that. So I can't support this, I guess, direction at this time. We've got a bunch of other fires as a township to spend our resources on at this time, although the cause is valid.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you. I think just for some context, the memorial complex itself does have no idling signs. I think the desire from the member that brought this forward was the fact that there's no real teeth to that. So I'm not sure if there's something from a staff perspective where we could do some sort of informational reminder or I'm not really sure. I did want to ask though, and this may not be something that Deanne knows, but maybe Jeff, is it just the memorial complex that has no idling signs, or is it something that kind of is across the board for all municipal buildings? Yeah, I'm not sure who would, maybe Annie, I don't know. I'm just gonna call out names and see if someone
Somebody
knows.
jump in.
Yeah.
No, nobody's jumping.
I don't have an answer, Mayor Shantz, but I can say that we did have a provision in our noise bylaw that restricted idling, primarily for the noise perspective. It was removed in the 2023 update. It is something that is very difficult to enforce. And then there were several exceptions, refrigerated trucks, vehicles doing certain things, and then in excessive heat or excessive cold conditions to keep the climate on. So it was something that we didn't feel at the time fit in the noise bylaw. And it's something that, like I said, is difficult to enforce. You know, I think your comment about signage is a good one. If it's just a sign, there's not really teeth to it other than maybe the educational component.
Just to follow up that, I'm wondering if maybe if there's not an appetite from council for a bylaw that maybe looking at a larger policy in place for signage about no idling on township property may achieve the goal of getting that education out without necessarily enforcing a bylaw that's difficult to enforce at the end of the day.
Ms. Freeze, then for me.
We just also wanted to mention that we did take a little bit of a look at this, and in 2021, there was an anti-idling campaign that was spearheaded by the Green Team, and that focused on educating staff. So there's also, from what I understand, all municipal vehicles have anti-idling stickers beside their ignitions as well. So we've done that. And then, yeah, as Jeff had mentioned, the issue is with enforcing and staff time to prepare the bylaw, and then staff that we would need from the enforcement side to actually been able to enforce an anti-idling bylaw.
Councillor Bryant.
Is this something we can post on our website, just a notice for the public? I mean, at least then it's out there.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, I think we could, as a recommendation or as a request to people using our facilities.
Yeah, like we have those flashing banners when you go onto the website, or the banner that comes up when you first click on it. Before you can go any further, you've got to read it and click the X to get rid of it, type of thing. Maybe something like that. I don't know, just a thought.
We do try to reserve that for, not all the time, or you're going to be driving people crazy, but
no, but just for an occasional every now and then post it, just
Yeah.
like with winter coming, don't park out front and idle for 10 minutes while you're picking up your
and
kids
some
from hockey or
education.
whatever. Yeah, educational, basically.
Yeah, we could work on that.
Yeah, I think Councillor Bryant has struck on upon a good idea, especially as if it's recreational buildings that are seeing an influx of this being an issue. It might be something that you could post on the township sites for those recreational facilities, just a general reminder.
Is that adequate direction to staff? Or
Maybe if all of council is in agreement, is that direction, just some head nods or some thumbs? Okay, thank you. We can take that back.
okay, thank you. Other business. We came back from AMO, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and Councillor Burgess and Councillor Bryant and CAO Brenneman and I were there. I attended quite a number of delegations with a variety of ministers, met with transportation, talking about Highway 7 and all-day two-way go, and also rural transit. Had a number of delegations that referenced mental health. So one was for a 24/7 crisis response to increase the hours of that. It's only, I think it's 8 hours a day it's open, which isn't adequate for that's a place where ambulances, for example, can take people who are in mental health crisis. If they're not open 24/7, they can't set up a procedure to do that. So there's a lot of reasons why that would be good to have 24/7. So was involved with that. Also increased demand for counseling. particularly for youth, but across and intimate partner violence. Met with that was with the Associate Minister of Health, Michael Tabolo, who is interested in meeting with the townships here, coming and seeing what we do here and how we handle things. So we're pretty excited to try to make that happen this fall yet. Met with the Solicitor General for a grant for mobile response, which was the Waterloo Region Police Impact Team, where there's a social worker that attends with a police officer. So looking for more support for that project. Met with infrastructure, asking for more funding for bridges and culverts, because we all know we can't afford those. Minister of Sport, to enhance the multi-year grant for facilities, particularly some of my other colleagues from the other townships, but we'll be looking at that in the not too distant future as well. Rural Affairs, talking about infrastructure, transit, water and wastewater, and broadband, and looking for more funding for some of those things. And Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, I think I've got that right, on aggregate and looking at minimum distance separations, rehabilitation, and enforcement. And Councillor Bryant and Councillor Burgess attended a number of those with me. So I think it was a worthwhile conference. I don't know, Bonnie, if you've got anything you want to add.
I thought it was very good, an opportunity to network with other municipal colleagues. And when Evan and I were traveling, we took the train and the whole car was full of municipal politicians. So it was an interesting trip.
I bet it was. Okay. Are there any other council reports? Councillor Schwinn.
Sort of follow up on the conference. I'm really glad we had a good presence there and good conversations. I hope that's the annual event for that. That's us going out to meet with the province. I'll admit, since I joined council, I'm surprised, disappointed, I'm not sure the term, that our MPP doesn't come meet with us. I'm wondering if it'd be worthwhile sending an invitation to Mr. Harris. Hey, we'd love to have you come to present to council some night and discuss Woolwich issues.
Certainly, we can put that invitation out. I can tell you that the township mayors and CAOs, we meet quarterly, and we invite Mr. Harris and Mr. Lewis, and they regularly attend with us. But coming to council would be, yeah, I put that invitation out. Anything else? Okay, outstanding activity list. Nobody's jumping off on that. No notice of motion. So Councillor Schwint had a pecuniary interest. Okay, that came out of the, right. Thanks. So what we'll do is we will take these in two pieces then. We'll make sure I've got them in the right order. The first one is the one that you declared, right? Okay, so the first motion is the following bylaws in the hands of the clerk be read a first, second, and third time. They've finally passed and they be numbered as bylaw number 51-2024 and 52-2024, that they be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the corporate seal. And that's the, excuse me, the bylaw to prohibit or regulate site alteration, and the bylaw to establish payment of fees and charges. Moved by Councillor Bryant, second by Councillor Cadeau. All those in favor, and that's carried. And then the second motion then would be the following bylaws again, same verbiage, a bylaw to lift reserves, and a bylaw to confirm actions and proceedings of council from August 27th. Moved by Counselor Grant, seconded by Counselor Cadeau. All those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the adjournment. Motion that the meeting adjourn to meet again in regular session on September 24th, 2024. Counselor Bryant, Counselor Cadeau, all those in favor, and that is carried. Thank you. In closing, on behalf of council, we appreciate all who participated, attended, or tuned into the meeting tonight. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your evening.